Welcome, Steeler Nation. I'm Stan Savran. It's my pleasure to welcome in one of the Steelers' all-time greats, Greg Lloyd, now a member of the Steelers Hall of Honor. Greg, welcome. Great to see you.
Thank you for having me.
You're a sixth-round draft choice out of Fort Valley State, small school. The Steelers are notorious for finding guys at schools like that throughout history. But even so, as a senior, did you expect to, A, be drafted by the Steelers or drafted by anybody in the NFL?
I did. I actually was courted by the Dallas Cowboys, if you can say that word. And that's where I thought I was going. Dallas sent me a lot of paraphernalia. They were interested. But Dallas was not the first team to come to my college to work me out. Pittsburgh was. Pittsburgh showed up Thanksgiving holiday, and Tom Donahue actually was the person. And I think I ran a timing for him, and he looked at it, and the next words out of his mouth was, "Has anybody else been here to see you?" And so you kind of got an idea then, and then shortly thereafter, the floodgate opened. So yeah, I had an idea.
That's great. They've been so great at finding talent such as yourself. You played with a chip on your shoulder. You played with an edge, which of course is a great thing. And I wonder, coming from a smaller school, did you feel you needed to play that way to prove yourself?
Well, I mean, when you look at the history of, like you said, Pittsburgh, especially on defense, you had Mel Blount from, Southern University, Donnie Shell, South Carolina State, John Stallworth, Alabama A&M, and, a slew of other guys. I think LC also went to, it was Arkansas Pine Bluff, I believe. And so you had a lot of HBCU, guys that were here that had proven themselves. But again, we're a different era coming into a different generation, and still Division II college football was kind of, I won't say frowned upon, but it was looked upon as, if I was at the University of Georgia or Pitt or somewhere, I'd be third string. And so it's like, well, who's saying this? Somebody's saying this that obviously don't know me, you don't know my heart, and you don't know my skill. So do me a favor, put me in the game with these guys, and I prove to you that, not only am I worthy of being there, but most of the time I'm probably better than them. And I found that out when I got in the league, that everybody was kind of like, here I am. I got drafted in the 6th round. So I'm here with first rounders. I'm here with Penn and Colorado and Nebraska and all those guys. And I'm really not impressed. I'm not impressed because at the end of the day, it's like he has to outwork me. He has the same gear I have, but he has to outwork me. And where I came from, I'm just not going to let somebody outwork me. I was always taught that I had to be better. I've got to, if somebody's, is working out, an hour, I got to work out the hour and a half. And so that's always been a part of me. So it wasn't so much the chip, it was that I had the stats. I had the stats coming out of college to be, if I was at one of those colleges, first round draft choice. But because of where I went to college, everybody said, well, we're going to make him a 6th round. And it was cool because it gave me the opportunity to really progress. There was no pressure as a 6th round draft choice. There's no pressure that you got to play right away, and it was like, oh, this guy can play, so we kind of got a steal here. So, I was comfortable where I was, but I played with a chip because, again, I thought that where I went to school at, people didn't, they didn't respect it. And so every time you lined up, not just in a game, but to practice, you got to show people that, this is where I come from. This is how we do things. It's no different. We don't have the alumni. We probably don't have the facilities. But what we do is we have something that you can't teach. We have heart. And that's something that you can't teach. You can't buy it. Either you have it or you don't.
You were a big reason why the Steeler defense became Blitzburgh. And I'm wondering if the scheme was fit perfectly for you, or they developed the scheme around your talents.
If you ask certain people would say yes, and I would say no, because the story behind this is that you don't want to be that guy. But when Kyle came in '92, they wanted me to be a middle linebacker. Well, everybody knows I played at 225. That was my weight soaking wet. I was 225. And to be an inside linebacker in the division we was playing in, we played in black and blue division. Cleveland ran the ball, and you had to be able to stop Kevin Mack and guys like that. So, we were, that kind of team we had to stop. I didn't think that I could match up with the offensive lineman and things. So they put me in at middle linebacker, and I went home. I literally went home. I was like, I just came off my first Pro Bowl playing outside linebacker, and footnote, I played right outside linebacker since I was 6 years old. So there wasn't a whole lot that you could tell me about it. From 6 years old straight through college, I played the same position. So I kind of had an affinity for, what I was doing. And then they said, hey, we're gonna put you in the middle, but they didn't tell me the why behind it. It's just, we're just gonna stick you in there. And so I remember doing one training camp, I was like, a mini camp, I was like, I'm out. I'm going home because I'm frustrated because I can't pick up the reads like I used to do it. Nobody's trying to teach me anything. They basically like threw me to the wolves. So I went home, and the first person who called me, Tom Donahue goes, hey, what's going on? And I kind of explained to him, like, I'm not a middle linebacker. I'm an outside linebacker, and they're not trying to teach me anything. They just kind of like, you're on your own, and I don't like this because it don't feel right. And so he said, well, you got to come back and we can talk about it. I said, well, I'll come back when they tell me I can play outside linebacker. And BC got on the phone with me, and he called me, and says, hey, he never called me by my name. I was always 95. He was like, hey, 95, what's going on? And I just told him. And he said, well, listen, come back and we'll discuss it. And it really wasn't a discussion. I came back, I went to his office, and he basically said, okay, you're outside linebacker. But what we want to do is we want to put you in on dime because you have an affinity for making plays all over the field. And we figured we put you in the middle, you wouldn't have to run all the way across the field to make a play. You'd be halfway there. He could have told me that 2 weeks ago. We would have been cool. So, it's just a matter of, knowing who your players are and stuff like that. So that's what happened. And, from that moment on, it was like, yeah, I could line up on the left side, and by the time the ball snaps, I'm on the right side. But, I wasn't always rushing. I'm still rushing these big guys in the middle. I wasn't rushing on the edge. And so, here in comes Chad and Jason, and then of course KG. And these guys were, they was rushing in that Blitzburgh defense, and I was just kind of holding the middle down. So it became what it was. But I don't think it was built around me. I think it was built around the talent that we had. We had a lot of fast guys, and we had a lot of guys. I had a lot of smart guys. And playing on that Blitzburgh defense, you had to know where you fit, and you had to make sure that you did not miss your cue. One of the things Dick LeBeau used to say all the time is, don't go stick your head where it don't belong. Trust that guy. And that's what made us work, And so, taking it to another level was how we practice. That was the main thing.
That group of linebackers was amazing. And when Chad was there, and then of course he left to go to Seattle, it's just been a never-ending issue. You mentioned this earlier on, Greg, when you talk about the legacy. When you look at all the positions on a football field, the Steelers have certainly had excellence at every position, but perhaps none more so in bulk than linebackers. And I'm wondering, when you came in, was there a feeling that, hey, I'm following Ham and Lambert and Russell and on and on and on?
Yes and no. Yes and no. The thing about legacy is that, the first person I got to meet, Joe Green. And I shake Joe Green's hand, and I realized that I was still a kid, and it was like, wow. And being around Joe and coaching, and then kind of watching film of what these guys did, and then I got, I was playing with Brian Hinkle at the time, who came through that era of Ham and Lambert and those guys, and just kind of had to teach you how to practice, understanding that, even my guy David Little, God rest his soul, and it was like, we would teach you how to practice. And one of the things that, I loved about Coach No was Coach No made sure that if you were a linebacker, it wasn't just about your position. You need to know what everybody on the field was doing. And you need to know how everybody fit. And it was kind of tough because, it was hard enough just understanding what you had to do on the play. You had to know what your middle linebacker on one side and the other side was doing, so you know how everything fit. And Kyle just kind of fell right into that again. Having him as a coach, I don't know if that's something that somebody told him about, but he had the same thing. And so we would get little quizzes and stuff like that, sometimes in practice, after practice, before a game, how you fit in the game. So being an outside linebacker and being a backer, one of the things, about what we did was we took pride in you look up in the stand and you see 58s. And you look up in the stand and you see, all those numbers and things of that nature, and you go, well, how do I get mine? Number up there. Well, you got to do something. You got to do something. These guys won 4 Super Bowls, and on top of that, they were probably, they were great people. They're great people in their community and stuff like that. So how do I get to be that? Well, you got to win. Everybody loves winning. Pittsburgh Steelers Stadium will be full if you're 5-11. I've been there. It'll be full if you're 6. But for somebody to wear your jersey, you got to do something. So how do I take my game from being 6th-round draft choice average to being 6th-round draft choice here? And it's like, you have to dedicate yourself, you have to practice, and you got to do those things, but you have to become that leader. You have to do things that you're asking other people to do. And so, it was truly, one of those things, an honor to come behind the Hams and the Lamberts, and people compare you, in a way to them, which I think there's still no comparison because those guys had their own thing that they did back then. And even with Andy. So we had to set a standard. And I think getting back to winning was in our era. Our era was getting back to winning. We got back to when we got back to being a dominant defense and things like that. So in that early 90s, that was us. We were the guys that I think projected onto the guys that came behind us to win, in 2005. I mean, we lost Super Bowl 30. We don't like to talk about that. But, it was the beginning of something. It was how we practiced, how we carried ourselves, the things that we did. And so we took pride in that. And I think when people saw that, it made us like, that group of linebackers, that these are the guys now, they're getting it done. And then every linebacker that came behind that, that's a standard, So Lambert and those guys were our standard. And now we became the standard for the guys that are behind us. And it's going to keep going. And like you say, and like when people talk football and they talk Pittsburgh football, you talk about your linebackers, especially in that 3-4 defense. If you don't have 4 good linebackers, it doesn't work.
That's a great analysis. And you came in for the legendary Chuck Noll. And I wondered, 2-part, Greg, if you were a bit in awe of him, given who he was and all he had achieved. And secondarily, I think everybody, football fans everywhere, have seen the famous NFL clip of Bill Cowher grabbing you on the sideline and saying, just rush the quarterback. You understand me? Just, your head is turned away, like, because people were worried about getting spit on and all that kind of stuff. But I'm wondering, to compare and contrast, those 2 coaches.
Well, again, and I would kind of like follow what I said. Coach Noll, being called the Emperor, he made you better. But he wasn't just about football. And not that Cowher was, but he wasn't just about football. Coach Noll was he was a family-oriented guy like the Rooney's organization is, very family-oriented, and strong in that nature. And Coach Noll used to always tell us that, you play this game, but it's not your life's work. It's not your life's work. You play this game, then you go on and do your life's work. But when you're playing, you play like it's your last game. That's how he wanted you to do it. But one of the things, again, I liked about Coach was like, at the beginning of a meeting in the morning, we got meetings, everybody's, going on. You guys may have that. And somebody walks in the room and it's like, you're still talking to the person, go, okay, guys. Coach Noll wasn't that guy, We had lookouts, but when he came out of his office, when we were sitting in the meeting rooms, but when he would grace the door, it was crescendo. Everybody would be like, and then everybody see Coach and they would go, And he would walk to the podium. That's how it was. BC, being a player's coach, he would come in and he would be at the podium and guys would be like, yeah, what's going on? And he was like, okay, guys. He said, okay, guys. And it was just, but it wasn't a disrespect. It was just that he let us get away with a little bit more. And everybody else was probably a little bit more afraid of Chuck than it was. So it was just kind of a different aura, it's just an aura. Chuck wasn't a hands-on kind of talk to you guy. He was kind of like, you didn't know how to take him. And I have a really good story for you on that one. I'm a Georgia boy, and coming from Georgia, we don't get snow. And when we do get snow, everything shuts down. I don't care if it's that much or it's that much. It's a shutdown. First year, staying at Allegheny Center, it snows, practice. I look up, I'm like, ain't no practice today. I'm not coming out. And so I'm in the bed, And so phone rang, Ralph Berlin says, hey, what are you doing? And I'm like, what do you mean? And he says, why are you not here? It's snowing. He's like, I can't tell you exactly what he said, but he's like, you need to get over here. And when you get here, stop by Chuck's office. And then, of course, 6th-round draft choice, been injured, heart's like this. Now, mind you, I walked in tennis shoes. Everybody who knows anything about snow know that's not good. I walked in tennis shoes from Allegheny Center, underneath that bridge, across the Clark Bar, across the parking lot, to work, because I don't know how to drive in the snow. Connie's the first person I see, secretary up front, and she says, Coach is waiting on you, and I'm going, this is not good. This is not good. I promise you, I think I'm getting cut. And I can't read him. I walk in the door, knock on the door, and I'm sirring him. It's like, yes, sir. Like, I have a little bit of military background for ROTC. So I'm sirring him. I'm like, sir. And he turns around, and he's got a little bit of a smirk on his face, and I go, okay, I might be okay. I might be okay. And he looks at me, and he says, hey, every year, every now and again, we draft guys from Georgia, and we know you guys don't get snow, and stuff like that. He said, but here in Pittsburgh, if it snows, if it thunders, if it's lightning, we're going to practice. Let that be your last time. And I'm thinking like, okay, if that's it, I got this. And I was like, that's it. It never happened again. And so that was my, run-in with him. But he was just a lot different than Kyle in that regards of you can get away with like maybe saying something to Kyle that you couldn't get away with saying with Chuck. Chuck didn't like celebrating. He would always say stuff like, act like you've been there before. And if he said something, it was golden. You don't get to voice your opinion back kind of thing. And that thing with me and BC was like, you know what? We're talking about a blitz that was happening. I remember like it was yesterday, a blitz that was happening. And it was like, everybody's not on the same page. And so it's like, everybody's not on the same page. I'm not going to blitz there and let that guy come out of there and I got to cover him and it's going to look like I was supposed to cover him and he run. So I didn't. And so I go to the sideline and in trying to explain to a coach and he's going, basically, just rush. And I'm going, okay, I got it. I hear you, but I'm looking like, you don't get this. You don't get what I saw. You was over here, you didn't see what I saw. But I understood it. And he was absolutely right, but I was trying to protect 6 points.
You sure did that well. You not only the sack total, Greg, but the amount of forced fumbles that you created. And I'm wondering, you took up martial arts.
Yes.
And I'm wondering if that training helped you tomahawk guys across the wrist and forced fumbles like that.
Well, absolutely. I mean, I met my congener, Grandmaster Kong. I met him through Terry Long. When I first came in, when I first got here, and Terry, it was unbelievable. Terry was for a big guy, he could get his foot up there. And I just one day in practice, I asked him, hey man, so he introduced me to Master Kong. And I was undersized. And for an outside linebacker weighing 225 pounds back then, that was light. And that was beginning to start of what they call this hybrid, defensive end / linebacker that could cover and rush at the same time. And I was that guy. And so I needed an edge. And when I went to Master Kong, one of the first things that I told him is I want to work on my hands. And so, that's what we did. And, we've had this relationship for 30 plus years, 7th degree black belt now. And one of the things that he taught me, and I got Rod Woodson and Cornell Lake and Willie Williams and even John Kobe, came over. But one of the things that, we worked on, it was like, we do a lot of hands to hands, one-on-one, especially being a defensive guy. Unlike a lot of corners out there, sometimes you're not in a play. Guys just run you off because it's run play. But as an interior guy, you're always doing something. You're always doing something with your hands. And I've got tight ends that are looking down at me. I got offensive linemen that are looking down at me. First time I met John Jacoby, I was like feed 5, 4, 5, kind of thing. And so working your hands was a good thing. And so by the time I learned that, and I got to playing football, I could see there were certain places on a guy that I could hit. There were certain things that I could do to trap guys' hands that would, cause the balls to come out. And yeah, it becomes second nature. It's not something that you're thinking about. It's just something that you do. You have to react to it. So it was more reactionary than it was, I'm going to think about it. And the reaction of it was a causation of, fumbles and things of that nature. And but it happens so fast that you don't have time to think about it. Things of that nature. So yeah, it was second nature. The quickness and all that stuff, that's what came up. So it became second nature. And it was also something that we practiced in practice. We practiced how to, fumbles and how to get out, things from the front, from the back and things like that. But it was something that we did, and it's something that you have to do in order to, to perfect it.
You mentioned the legacy of the great Steeler linebackers, and one of the parts of the legacy is great outside tandems.
Yes.
We've got one, we've had a number in Pittsburgh over the years, certainly. And I remember in a setting similar to this, interviewing Kevin Green. And without asking the question, God rest his soul, Kevin brought you up as a big part of his success. And I'm wondering, I think it's a pretty obvious question, if you felt the same, what he meant to you and enabled you to do on your side of the field.
Yeah. I mean, that's a tough one. But KG and I were, we were close. Probably not as close as we probably could have been. Probably closer than probably most of my brothers that I am to my brother, but we were close. We could have been closer. But we talked a lot. I mean, he had a sick mind like I did, and I understood it, and he understood me. And
Did you like the quiver and quake?
you know, it was, yeah, I did. I did. I mean, could we come up with something better? Yeah, but I did. I mean, the thing about it was to look over and see 9-1 on that side, and knowing what we had talked about, knowing how we had practiced and stuff, and this, I'm getting chills, and everything. So it was surreal. I mean, it was like we went into practice. I mean, I said to you like this: the way we practiced, the way we talked, and the things that we talked about doing, and the things that we challenged each other on, it was like, when you do work, you have an expectation, and when you don't do the work, you're hoping. Well, we expect it. Because of the way we practiced, the way we prepared, we expect it to be successful. And when anybody else, no matter who went down, whether it was a major piece or a minor piece of the puzzle, you're talking about a Rod Woodson or myself or a Carnell Lake or any of those guys, when a major piece went down, we were so together that you could put anybody in there and the train, was just as fast. And one of the things I loved about that is that everybody on that team we accepted Kevin when he came in, even though he played 3 years with it. We accepted him because we loved the way he played. We loved his passion for the game. We knew he was a pass rusher. And he just brought another dimension to us that we hadn't had in a while. A guy that we know can go and put pressure on the quarterback. But as a friend, a guy off the field, he was out there. He was out there a little bit, but I was. And so I've been to his house, he'd been to mine. We spent some time together. I knew his kids, he knew mine. And I think when you start talking about tandems and you start talking about relationships in football, the closer you are to somebody like that, the easier it is to play with somebody like that. I mean, did I trust him with my life? Absolutely. Did he trust me with his? Absolutely. But it was the challenge of standing on the sideline going, regardless of who we playing, he goes, all right, I'm going to get there before you get there. And I will go meet me there, kind of thing. But see, Kevin had the advantage because Kevin didn't have to cover Metcalf out of the backfield. He didn't have to cover Barry Sanders. I did. And so that was the deal. And it was like, causing fumbles in the backfield, having tackles on the other side of the ball. I used to always tell him, I said, you know what? I got just as many. I said, you look at my calls for it. So it was that thing. But, it was fun. The thing was, it was fun. And we made it a competition where it was fun. And it was like, come on. I mean, you're like, dude, I got double team. Are you seriously going to count that? And that's how we did. But that was the fun of it. We had a great time with it. And then, like you say, there were times, I think the Super Bowl, I think him and I may have been the last two to leave the locker room. And we were sitting there, I'm looking at him, and he's looking at me, and I'm going, how did we lose that, buddy? And it was tough. But losing him, probably one of the toughest days of my life, man. And it's still it lingers. It still lingers. Me and Carnell and some of the guys were sitting last night, and when you say it, it just feels so unreal. It doesn't even feel natural, to say it. And like I say, he wasn't the only one, and Tim Lester. From COVID, and Timmy and I lived in Georgia together, and I helped him with a football team there. It's just unreal. I mean, so you never have enough to say. There's nothing you can say, but just a great guy, and I loved playing with him, and I got a chance to rekindle that when I went to Carolina. Yeah, I won't say it loud, but he was there when I got there, and we kind of rekindled it, and it wasn't the same because I was hurt. And he was playing well, so it was like, I can't do what I want to do to help you out, so it's like I'm going to take a step back and I'm going to watch, so I'm still a fan, and I think in 2010 I did some coaching in Tampa, and most of the film that I broke down was of Kevin. I would show stuff guys, of him pass rushing and, some other guys, never myself, and I was trying to get these guys to understand, like, these guys, if you can do what these guys do, you're going to be okay, so. But yeah, that's a special relationship there, and he holds a special part in my heart, and he'll never be forgotten. I think the same goes for Chad and for LeVon. I think they feel exactly the same way.
Well, you're in the Hall of Honor together forever. And the last thing for you, Greg, you mentioned the Super Bowl. There haven't been many more devastating defeats, certainly on home field, than the loss to the Chargers in '94. But did that serve as a motivational tool to get you to the Super Bowl in '95? I realize the outcome wasn't what you wanted, but I wonder if that was an undercurrent, a theme that drove you and the team to get to the Super Bowl in '95.
I would say, to answer the question, I mean, I think it's, and I'm not being, anything, but I think it obviously, it was for me. I did not watch that game. A lot of times, season's over with, coaches want you to come in and watch it, and my thing is like, why? There's no more games. I don't want to see it. I didn't watch that game until we came back to training camp. When we came back to training camp, I did watch it. But the whole time in the off season, all you're thinking about is how is it that we can get back to where we were? Hearing all the time people say, how hard it is to get back to a Super Bowl. We're trying to get to a Super Bowl, but we've got to get past the AFC Championship game. We have to get past this AFC Championship game. But I think if you look back and you look at the defense that we had that year, the defense that we had in '94 was better than the defense we had when we went to the Super Bowl. Definitely better. And we managed. I mean, even though it took, somebody throwing a pass in the end zone and getting it knocked down to get there. I mean, you don't want to get there like that, but we did what we had to do. But we thought that the game that we played in San Diego, we were a better defense at the time because we had people in place that, like you say, that were super. And I think a lot of guys took it upon themselves. When I came to training camp, pissed off. I came to training camp and I told guys, you're not going to like me. You're not going to like me. I don't have time to be making friends this time. I don't have time for that. If you want to be in the Super Bowl, we want to get back, here's how we're going to do it. It's going to start in training camp. And like I said, we had a lot of guys that came in, first rounders and stuff like that, and we punked them. For lack of a better word, we punked them. But if you're playing with me, I would rather find out what kind of man you are in training camp than to find out when we got fourth and whatever we got to do in a playoff game that's going to, determine whether or not we're going to the Super Bowl or not. Now I got to find out if you're tough or not. It's not the time. And the time to find out is play one, training camp, did you come to play? Play two, training camp, did you come to play? That's what it was all about. So we would take preseason games like it was a regular season game. And I know people would say, hey man, these guys are playing like this is a regular season game. But yes, that's how we did it. So we were sending a message to everybody that that's what we're going to do. Mind you, we played San Diego again that year. Outcome was totally different, wasn't it?
Yes, it was.
And so it was like, hey, here we come. So my one of my best friends, and God rest his soul too, Jerry said. So after the game, he told me, he said, I told these guys, and he always called me G Lloyd. He said, I told these guys, he said, G Lloyd gonna have them guys ready. He said, don't come in. He said, G Lloyd gonna have them ready. But that was the deal, and it was like, so we knew we were better. The outcome wasn't that. But then back then, and you can say it, I can say it now, and I know it may hurt some people's feelings, but back then, we were probably better on defense than we were on offense. And when our offense had the ball to go in to score, we didn't have the confidence that you guys have now with the Ben Roethlisberger and the Jerome Bettis and all the guys the weapons that they had. Had we had that, we win 4 Super Bowls. Bang, 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 just like that.
No doubt.
No doubt about it. But, it is what it was at the time. And like I said, yeah, I think everybody was laser focused. And then, all the distractions were like, hey, we've been here before. We know what we got to do. Because understand this, we didn't know how to win. Even when Kyra came in, remember his first year, we're 12-4. We didn't know how to win. Buffalo came in and embarrassed us. Buffalo came in at a 12-4. We're the number 1 seed. They embarrassed us. We're out of the playoffs just like that. And you're looking around like, what happened? Because we didn't know how to win. We got there. We knew we had the talent, but we could not put together what do we do. And so, I guess the lesson is from, their success in failure. And in our failure to get past the first round, we learned how to win. And then we took it from there to the Super Bowl. And then, from there we had to, it's tough to get back, to a Super Bowl. And, like I said, a lot of respect for Buffalo for doing that 4 years in a row. But even that is a feat in itself. So we didn't want to be that guy, but it was tough, and so I think that got the ball rolling for, even though it took 10 years for Pittsburgh getting back into the Super Bowl. It's like, hey, listen, we have it. We know what to do. We have all that. We have the coaches. We have the players, and we just keep putting and plugging players in, put people in the right position. And then you acquire Roethlisberger here, you acquire a Palomua here, and you acquire somebody else here, and a Porter and other guys like that. And you got the pieces of the puzzle. And you got some guys that can get this done, and you got some guys that all they're hearing about is this is how they used to do it. This is how they used to do it. And it gets kind of eerie at sometimes. You imagine. You coming in, all you hearing is that Lambert and Ham and Lambert and Ham, and you go, yeah, at some point we want to hear our own name called. So I can imagine the Joys and these other guys, that are playing, and they're going, what about us? So you have to make that legacy so that people can, remember you, and that's what we did, and that's what we tried to do, and I think this honor kind of says it all and says, yeah, we respected how you played. We respected the fact that you showed up every Sunday, whether you were hurt or not, and you got it done, And so for me, I think, it's not so much an individual honor for me, but it's like the teammates and the guys that I had around me, they I won't say they forced me to, but they made me play at a level that I could play with them. And they held me to a standard as well as I held them to a standard. And because of that, we sit in the Pittsburgh Hall of Honor.